Today, we've got a special one lined up for you. Brandon, you want to start us off?
Oh, yeah. So we thought in light of Father's Day, we would kick it off with some dad jokes.
Oh, yeah.
You ready?
Give me your best one.
Okay.
First one to laugh loses. We'll go 3 rounds.
Okay. What do you call bears with no ears?
Koala bears?
B.
That's the most... Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with one.
I'm ready.
You're gonna just cry about it.
Probably.
What did the slow tomato say to the others?
I don't know.
Don't worry, I'll catch up.
It's a tomato and it's ketchup. Okay.
That's for fun.
Okay. What is heavy forward but not backward?
What is heavy forward but not backwards?
What is heavy forward but not backward?
Concrete block?
A ton.
So dumb. So dumb. Why did the coach go to the bank?
I don't know.
To get his quarterback.
Must have been a football coach, not a basketball coach.
Yeah.
I invented a new word today.
What is it?
Plagiarism.
Okay.
I laughed at my own dad joke.
Okay.
That's terrible.
This is my last one for you. Why do melons have weddings?
I don't know.
Because they cantaloupe.
Welcome to The Adventures of Grizzly and Sparrow, a podcast where we explore how God is using students to impact the campus and the world.
Welcome to episode number 3. Thank you guys for tuning in again to The Adventures of Grizzly and Sparrow. We had an awesome time last week catching up with Adam and Sarah Quinn and their cute kids, Sadie and Atlas. I don't know if YouTube and podcast world survived Cuteness Overload. If you missed it, check it out. It was a lot of fun visiting with those guys. Man, it's episode number 3, Sperry. How do you feel about that?
I'm feeling good. I feel like we started strong, and we're only going to get stronger, so we're not going to let you guys down. You just got to keep with it.
Yeah. Stick it out to the end. That's what I say. Keep showing back up week in, week out. Man, we've got an exciting guest tonight. Or in this episode, we say tonight because it's evening when we film. Who is that? Who's on the docket for tonight's special guest?
He is a longtime friend of both myself and Grizzly, and also a good friend of OSU Chi Alpha. Some of you guys know him as Garret Boren.
Boom.
Others of you just know him as Boren, and some people just know him as Garret. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're so excited. He's both alumni, CMIT graduate, campus missionary. So we're super jazzed to be catching up with him. Also, we hear in the works is a very special Kidz Corner. We don't have a lot of information on it as we're filming this, so we will see as things come together what happens. So be sure, stick around. They've not let us down week in and week out. It's been something. It's been epic. It's chaos. Last week was pure chaos. 5 missionary kids on a Zoom call. Like who does that? I don't even understand. It ended up being 2 most of the time. The other ones were just wandering about. It was a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. Check out. We're excited to be talking with Garret Boren, having him back in Stillwater. So something dawned on me, Sperry, today. Well, okay, not today, because it's been talked about in our house for quite a few weeks now, as you can imagine. Aubrey's birthday is coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, man.
Can you believe that? You know how old she's going to be? 11.
Dang.
What?
Yeah, that's next level.
It's next level. 11. Yeah, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around how she's 11. So her birthday's coming up at the end of June, which is a lot of fun. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But like, as like we're looking, a couple days away from Father's Day, shout out to all the dads, telling those legendary dad jokes.
Yeah, man.
Which you just when I think of dads, I think of dad jokes. So that's where you got to go. I think of grills. I think of mustaches, tools, shops, all that stuff, and dad jokes, of course.
White Nikes.
White Nikes. Lawnmowers for some reason.
Yeah. White Nikes or the white New Balance. Those are the top two.
So thinking about that, I was thinking about this, obviously as I do when we're filming, thinking about stuff, kind of what we're going to talk about, different things. Like, you're got 2 kids in, we've got an almost 11-year-old, a 4-year-old. What have been some major like dad fatherhood lessons, for all the soon-to-be fathers, for all the current fathers? Obviously there's lots of people way more experienced than both of us that we should be asking, fatherhood questions from. But for you, like, what's been some of the kind of lessons you've learned over these years as you've added another one, especially into the equation?
Yeah, so I've got one son. His name's Watchman. He's 2 years old, just turned 2 at the end of April. And then have a second son. His name is Witness. He was born April 3rd, 2020. So he was born in the middle of a cool, interesting time. Yeah. One important thing that I learned early on with Watchmen was Mama has to have her time. So there would be days where Watchmen and we would literally do nothing. Yeah. I would just take him and we'd leave for the whole day, and we would like, what every guy does is if you've got a whole day to waste, you just go to your dad's house.
Yes. See?
Because, your dad's got like tools.
Everything, yeah.
Literally anything and everything that Watchmen could destroy. And it's not, it doesn't matter because it's not mine. It's my dad's. So we would just go to my dad's house and literally hang out for the whole day and do nothing. Yeah. But he would just run around the shop and, he'd pick up a broom. Yeah. And he'd play with that for an hour and a half. Awesome. And then he would grab a broken piece of wood that means nothing, and he would try and stab us with it. Yeah. So we try and give Mama all the time that she needs to be able to rest and to, get focused for a whole, the next week ahead or whatever. So we do that. And then with Witness, one thing that I like to do with him, I don't know if it's helpful or not. It's just, it's just what I like to do. I just take him outside quite a bit, so he can see, grass and stuff. When they're young, they can't see very far.
They can't see very far. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, but I would say, for all the dads out there starting out, as soon as you have your first kid, you just like got to give your wife as much time as possible to like do whatever she wants to do. Yeah. So you got to man up, figure out how to make a bottle, and that whole thing.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Like figuring out how to balance that. For Jalen, your wife. Man, I would have to say it's hard. Like we had a girl first, so it was very, very. I mean, it was great. It was awesome. Shout out to all the girl dads that are rocking it. But it was very, very different because like. I grew up in a house of guys. Mm-hmm. It was me, my brother, most of the time. Like it was all guys. So like trying to figure out what that world was like for her when she was first born, it was crazy. Like I felt like completely like I think one lesson I think I would say is just like I think you're always gonna feel ill-prepared. To be, to be a parent. Doesn't matter how many books you read, how many things you watch, how much advice people give you. But I still feel like even almost 11 years in, I still feel ill prepared like every time. But yeah, it was just like trying to figure out that world, like how do I connect to that world? Yeah. So we would, play with dolls, we would draw, we would do crafts. There's one picture I've got from, man, I can't remember when it was, but we were doing something, playing somehow. And like she wanted to put bows in my hair, so like all over my hair was like hair bows. We'll try to throw a picture of it in the video.
Dang, man.
But it was like all over my hair. It was all over my beard.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's like that's the world you got to jump into and rock it. And then I think with Elliot, our second one, I was like ill prepared just for like the like different level of exhaustion. Right after number 2, like you think it's like, okay, you've already had one kid. All the parents that have more than one kid or that are like kids that are teenagers, we're still young in the game, I think. But like, everybody's like, obviously that's a dumb answer or dumb response, because you think it's like going to be, we're already like quote unquote experienced, right? But like second kid hits and you're like, what happens? Like all your energy is just drained. Yeah. So I was like very, very like ill prepared for that. Wasn't ready to like feel exhausted all the time. So I think it was a little bit of a struggle, but like being able to have the guy in the scenario and the equation, and getting to let him help with some of the stuff we do around the house or when we're building stuff. Aubrey loves, honestly, she loves building stuff. Like she loves being involved with that. Anytime we're doing breakaway stuff or Chi Alpha stuff here, she almost always has a part. Even these these things these things on the walls, she had a part in that, just because she kind of loves the crafty, creative stuff. So she gets to do a lot of the things that I get to do. And now she's like making slideshows and writing stories and doing all these stuff. It's really crazy.
I remember she made a puppy slideshow and she showed it to me one day.
Yeah, so
was real awesome.
we broke down 2 years ago and bought her a Chromebook. Because she had a tablet, kid's tablet, which she played games on. But like as she was getting further into school, we thought she probably would need to do it. So we researched how do we lock this thing down and do all the right stuff. And literally the very first thing she did with it. So like you have access to all the world, right? You have a Chromebook, you have access to all the world. The first thing she does is she makes a slideshow. Yeah, I was like, okay, our kid's making a cat slideshow. Maybe we're not off too bad. Maybe we're gonna be okay. The world's not gonna burn because
that's so funny,
she's got access to the internet. But it was pretty funny. It was pretty awesome. So let's do this. Let's jump to our conversation with Garret Boren.
Today's special guest, we have Garret Boren, all the way from Moore, Oklahoma, originally. Boren, do you want to kind of introduce yourself to all the people who know you and all the people who don't know you as well?
I guess so. I'm originally from Moore, Oklahoma, Tornado Town, USA. Primary import and export is EF5 Tornadoes. I then went to college at OSU, found these crazy weirdos called Chi Alpha, and somewhere along the way, God decided, hey, you shouldn't become a college professor, you should become a missionary, and now I'm doing that with college students all around the city of Tulsa.
That's
nice. Incredible. So like I know Sperry and I, we know you pretty good, but a lot of our listeners might not know you or might, been in those transitional years where you weren't here, and some of our alumni from even further back and pastors and supporters. When did you graduate from Oklahoma State, and what did you study? Like, what was your field of study when you were here?
I graduated in December. I think it was 2017, wasn't it? It was 2017. I studied biochemistry and microbiology, so the perfect preparation for mission work. But my original hope was I wanted to be a college professor, and I loved research. I wanted to do cancer research. God completely took that away through making every attempt at cancer research I did fail miserably. And the next thing I knew, I really felt this call in my heart to become a missionary, and God led me to Thailand first for 6 months, and then back here to Stillwater for a year of training, and then now it's been a year in Tulsa, the newest home for me.
So you've been in Tulsa a year. So in your kind of like years in college in Chi Alpha, what were some of your roles and some of the things that you did while you were a student in Chi Alpha?
Ooh, what did I do as a student in Chi Alpha? I led outreaches. I was a Bible study leader. I was president at one point. I think I cooked food at one point. I did probably just about everything except go to the girls' Bible studies. And
Smart move.
Yeah, so a little bit of everything, really.
And you went on Thailand. You were with us on our mission trips to Thailand multiple times prior to the 6-month stint there in Thailand.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'll throw this out. This might surprise you. It's pretty awesome for us to hear. We were polling some of the students, talking to some of the students pretty recently, just about kind of the podcast and some of the names and people we were thinking about interviewing. And we just opened it up. We were like, hey, let's give us some suggestions, throw out some names, throw out some ideas. And like, you were the top of the list. Yeah. Everybody was like, we want to hear from Boren. Okay. Yeah. I was like, that is awesome. Yeah. It was pretty awesome.
What's he doing with his life? Where's he at?
It was just
we want to see him.
And they were like, let's catch up with Boren. So we like immediately like, okay, we got to figure out a way to get the incredible Garret Boren. I just think it goes to show you the legacy and the impact that you had on students while you were here. I think sometimes we don't quite fully realize like the impact we have on people. But yeah, I mean, everybody was like pretty ecstatic to kind of hear how things are going and your story and stuff like that. So
yeah,
wow.
So you mentioned something about some like training that you did prior or like after coming back from Thailand, your 6-month thing in Thailand.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of tell us a little bit? I mean, Brandon and I obviously know what it is.
There's this great thing called the Branding Iron Academy, headed by John and Kathy Deischer. They're wonderful people who will test you and grow you and force you to grow in all the ways that you didn't want to, but God really wanted you to.
That's good.
And that was probably one of the most growing years of my entire life. It was amazing. It was wonderful. We cried every single Monday. We actually nicknamed Monday Cry Mondays. It was because of a book that was really deep. We didn't like beat each other up. Don't worry about that. But it was probably one of the things that was most worth it that I've done so far in my life to do. So
kind of walk us through the whole campus missionary and training thing. Like, what were some things that you were required to do? And then like maybe give us like your one of your favorite things that you did and like one of your least favorite things.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the requirements, I mean, it was like we had coursework every week. There was at least one day every week that we were just like in a classroom trying to learn everything from theology to there was a couple books we were going through at the same time. Some of them were deep books on theology. Some of them were really personal, hence Cry Mondays. We got to spend time with staff, shadowed different staff members. I had to lead a small group, just like I did in college. Lead and come up with my own outreach. That was pretty cool. As far as like my favorite things, it really does sound dumb, but I really did like Cry Mondays.
Nothing like a bunch of grown men crying in a room together.
We love that part. That was a favorite part.
Yeah. It was just something that was so bonding, and there was just that level of depth and trust that was built there. That's good. It's rare. It's you don't find that everywhere.
Yeah,
that's good.
As far as my least favorite things, my least favorite thing may have been just at different times when I would be told to do one thing by John Deischer, and then someone else on staff would come up and tell me, hey, go do this for me. It's like, I'm supposed to have today off. Like, he told me I have to.
Shots fired.
That's fair.
I'm not going to say any names, but
that's totally fair. What would you say? Okay, so like we've got the Branding Iron Academy. It's new to Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. We're in our 3rd year with John and Kathy leading the internships. The only one in Oklahoma, which is pretty exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. What would you say just to the students that might be thinking about? We have several students that are thinking about missions. That are thinking about campus ministry.
Yeah.
What would you say even to those guys that are just maybe considering? What do I do after I graduate? Should I consider the internship? If I'm thinking about missions, what would you say to those guys?
I'll start semi-jokingly with the advice I was given. Pray about a year and then give a lifetime.
Nice.
But I would really say start with prayer, go through it. I'm not going to say like you have to have this amazing vision from God that he comes down on a cloud and tells you, you must do this internship. But, if it's something that you want to be serious about your walk with God, even if you're not 1,000% sure you're going to be a campus missionary at the end of the day, give it a shot. You'll end up growing. You'll grow closer to God. That's pretty worth it. At least I think.
Yeah.
So
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So you finish the internship.
Yep.
And God calls you to go to TU over in Tulsa Hurricanes. And
Golden Hurricane.
Gold-
The Golden
the-
Hurricane.
the
Only
Golden
one
Hurricane.
hurricane.
my
Golden
bad.
Hurricanes.
My bad.
Is that the symbol? Is that the
Yeah,
symbol?
yeah.
What is it?
Yes, it's a circle.
The OK sign.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And then you
Yeah,
swirl it.
it's like the eye of the hurricane.
Oh,
kinda.
that's
Oh,
nice.
wow.
The eye of the
That's
hurricane.
wild.
We
That's
don't
wild.
have very good school
over
spirit.
Tulsa.
Yeah. So you studied, microbiology and something else, some other fun thing here, biochemistry at OSU. You do the CMIT and get trained, do that whole thing, and then transition to be on staff at TU.
Mhm.
You want to kind of walk us through your journey as like your first semester full-time staff at TU, and then enlighten us on what all happened as the COVID stuff started to unveil itself.
Okay. Yeah. So my first year in Tulsa has definitely been a wild ride ever since like moving there in August. I remember, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after I moved, my car broke down. And so, you everybody like nowadays, like 2-3 months ago, you started that social isolation thing. Well, don't worry. I did it like 7-8 months ago.
Forced isolation.
Force.
Yeah. Uber became my main way of getting around. It was definitely a lot of transition. I think it's different and it can be difficult starting off, just learning new people on staff. Not to say there's anything wrong with anybody. It's just different people work differently and you're not used to it.
Absolutely.
And so that was definitely one of the hardest transitions. Slowly learning, when I say this word, they think of this while I think of that.
Ooh, yeah.
And that sort of stuff.
Communication, yeah.
Yeah. It took a little bit of getting there in that aspect. And then another big factor that was, at least for me, a little bit difficult is when we started, I was the only male staff member.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was taking over from a guy who had just been called off to church planting and was fulfilling that call.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting just because it was just suddenly, here's all of these things that he had been doing. That's yours now. It's just like, okay, what should I do with them? It's like, you'll figure it out. I was like, okay.
Solid.
But so those were some of the bigger transitions earlier on. It's also just hard moving to a new place,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you've spent like roughly 5 years in
Very
one place.
formative years.
Yeah,
Formative years.
yeah, your best friends, that's where you made them. And so it was definitely a little different. There was times of loneliness and just feeling down just because I didn't know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have my best friend 5-10 minutes away,
Yeah. Sleeping in the room next to you.
in the bed 20 feet away.
Yeah.
But so it was definitely some struggles for that first semester, especially. I think a lot of good things came of it. I thank God for all of it because I felt like half the time I was like stuck in that transitional like mess of mind, and just despite that, ministry went surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Like there was at one point in the fall semester, every week I had a new visitor to my small group.
That's awesome.
I was constantly being able to disciple new guys, and they were taking it in, But at the same time, I was like, man, God, thank you so much. I don't think I did anything. That transition to spring was good, a crazy guy got me a car by crowdfunding it, and then him and his wife came on staff with us. It definitely just this whole first year has felt like there's nothing but transition. And I can't get away from it. It's just like, okay, I've got a rhythm of life for a week straight. Okay, everything's changed.
Let's change it all, yeah.
Yeah, but
You got to keep you on your toes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but they're coming on staff, Destry and Cynthia. It's been great this past semester. You know, it's helped with a lot of different things. I think it's helped our staff team to grow not just in numbers but in focus and depth in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and so I've really, it's really been good. Then, of course, partway through that spring semester, one day, like, okay, everything's normal. Next week we're doing this. And I remember it was the week before spring break at TU, and one of the students had I think it was either a sister or a parent caught COVID-19, and the next day after the university learned of it, shut down.
It was just shut the whole place down.
Yeah, everything was immediately online.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, and so it went from everything's normal to like, okay, now everything's online. I remember the last day of that they actually had physical classes. We managed to get all of our students together, and we were just going to have like a dinner together,
Yeah.
And we did that, and then bam, the next day is like, okay, go home, don't come back.
Wow, yeah.
See you guys in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Close to it. Close to it.
At this point, has TU said anything about what the fall semester is going to look like for you guys?
Yeah, they've put out quite a bit. I don't know if they know fully what the fall semester will look like.
Sure.
But they're requiring masks for everybody on campus, students, staff, visitors, faculty.
Solid.
Yeah, so if you walk your dog on campus, you better have a mask on.
Does your dog have to have a mask?
I'm the dog too.
Yeah, I know. Do they make dogs masks
probably
now?
so.
I don't know.
Oh yeah,
There's probably a
I think
market
it's just
now
a
for
muzzle.
them.
I think it's just a muzzle. Yeah, a whole muzzle.
There you go. You have to muzzle your dog. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I think all of the dining is going to be takeout only, which will be definitely a big change up, because I remember one way that TU likes to advertise things is they would clubs would put posters on tables in the union.
Oh, yeah.
Dang.
And so there's no more tables there, probably.
You got to figure out a way to slip your card into their food somehow. Obviously, wrap it in plastic or something.
Yeah, wrap it in plastic.
COVID safe.
Wipe off with some Lysol wipes, stick it in there.
Yep.
What is this in my burrito? Yeah, past that, they're doing one person per dorm room, so nobody has a roommate.
No roommates, yeah.
That's good.
All the Wi-Fi to yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's still split across the floor, I'm sure.
Oh, son of a gun.
But, yeah. And, yeah, I think one thing I think is going to be a very big difference for TU is going to be TU has normally just a huge international population. It's normally about 20-25% of the students.
Wow.
And it had already been dropping. It was 20% in the fall. It had went down to 15 at the spring. And I think now it might get below 10.
Wow.
If I had to guess. Just because there's so many students that, they've told them, hey, you really need to go home. And I can't imagine, just with all the travel restrictions and different things, be able to get back.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way.
Yeah, a lot of our international students have been in the same boat. When they, really, once the semester finished, we went online spring break too.
Yeah.
The international students were kind of in a weird spot because most of them couldn't go home. And if they could go home, they probably couldn't come back.
Yeah.
So even as we've gone into the summer, the international students are still kind of in a weird spot, not kind of knowing what's going to be open and what's not going to be open.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It seemed like even here, the semester was going great, right? January, February, into March, beginning of March, and then everything just drastically changed. Somebody asked me the other day, our missions director, Darren Pilcher, the Oklahoma missions director, shout out to Darren if he's listening to this podcast.
Yeah, go Darren.
Go Darren. We love Darren. He asked me, he was like, so how'd you think the first semester went of being the director? And I was like, well, I wish I could give you a straight answer on that. The jury's still out, it turns out, because of all the, all the changes and drastic stuff that we've had to do.
Understandable.
But OSU's in the same boat. Like we kind of have been given some guidance on what's going to happen. Yeah. I think they're still holding out a little bit to communicate everything until they know a little bit more. I think maybe waiting on some of the state guidelines, the CDC guidelines, on what the classes will be and stuff. Yeah. So we're in that same weird spot of like not knowing what the fall is going to look like exactly, with our classes, but also even like all of our new student orientations over the summer have been online, which is just super, super weird.
Yeah, we've only gotten like one hit on it, and that was it.
Barely, normally ours, that's like a huge hit for us.
Yeah, 400 or 500 new students.
Yeah. Let me throw this out. So did you come into college already kind of being a believer? Was that something that happened while you were a student, or kind of in that transitional state from graduating high school to going to college?
Yeah. So it's a weird story. I can't say I have like a lot of people like they have that moment where they're kneeling at the altar and that's the moment they give their life to God. I call me a heretic or what will you, but I don't really have that moment. I remember in high school, my family was semi-religious. We went to a Baptist church when I was very young, and we stopped going because of different issues just with my sisters and how the church viewed my family, and it was very hard on my mom because she was a single parent, and so I think the whole thing just felt extremely overwhelming, and so we stopped going. I was homeschooled until high school with it, and the only reason I went to high school was because I had started watching football games, and I was like, if I do that, I get to hit people. So that sounded like fun.
Yeah.
But I went to high school. Yeah, it's a great way, great method. Put on some shoulder pads and go for it. But going to high school, I had just over time, I guess there was some expectation in my mind of what the, perfect high school experience that you see on TV is supposed to be. And it wasn't that, of course. Yeah. And I just felt overwhelmingly depressed at different times. And it was very hard. It felt like the friends I had weren't really good friends, and the friends I wanted didn't want to be my friend. And then I remember when my older sisters had started going back to a church, not the same church we grew up in, and she was between apartments. She moved back in with us for a couple months because the next apartment wasn't ready yet, and she was telling me about the stuff she did, and she just seemed happy, and I was like, well, hey, I want to be happy. Maybe Jesus will make people happy. And so I picked up this old Bible I got from like a vacation Bible school when I was really little that was like half fallen apart, and like the glue that kept the pages in was like coming undone. And I just went up to the library in my high school just every day at lunch. I'd try to be the first one in line at lunch, eat as quick as humanly possible, and then just go up to the library. And I would sit there and I'd try and read it. I don't know that I read it very well. It was usually like, let's see how fast I can go through this. And I just started in Genesis and kept reading. Somewhere partway through the Old Testament, I want to say Psalms or Proverbs maybe, I thought to myself, well, if I'm really going to test this out, I need to pray. I need to give that a shot. And so I prayed a prayer of, hey, God, if you exist, where do you want me? Because this doesn't feel like the right place. And I didn't think anything of it, I never really meaningfully prayed before, I did like the, little kid prayers that you
bless
teach.
This food.
Help
me on this exam.
Not even help me on this exam. It was more like, bless this food, Lord, help me sleep good night. Like the 6-year-old prayers. That may have been the last time I did prayers when I was like 8. And I just prayed that prayer, and the next day, these 3 guys, one of whom was my friend, the other 2 were like, one was a member of my football team also, and so I kind of knew him, and then the other one was kind of like a semi-acquaintance kind of deal, and they all went to different churches, but they all invited me to church that day, and it weirded me out enough that I was like, I'm not going to go with you to church, but maybe there's something to this thing.
Yeah.
And so from that point, I never really got like a church family when I was in high school. But by the time I was, getting to graduate and everything, I had been with my sister at her church a few times and seen like the community and the fellowship they really had. And I was just like, okay, this thing says I need that kind of thing. I need a church. And so wherever I go to college, I need to find a church. Yeah. And so I say I was just saved enough to look for a church. I don't think I knew anything really about Christianity. I remember I found Chi Alpha through the church on campus thing, and I started going to a small group, and like almost every week the small group leader would use like 1 or 2 words, and I'm just like, what does that even mean? Devotion? What is that?
That's awesome. Who was your small group leader?
Brian Abraham.
Yeah. Shout out to Brian Abraham.
Yeah.
Rockstar.
One of the OGs.
Oh yeah. From the beginning of time until now.
So for TU, OSU, we know students are going to be coming back in the fall. You don't have a lot of details of what it's going to look like, but we know, there's going to be campuses, 4-year, 2-year universities all across Oklahoma and really the nation. What would you say, like, for those guys that are kind of in that same spot that need, not necessarily campus ministry, but need a community? Can you kind of talk to the importance of like trying to find that community when you're going off to college?
Yeah. I mean, you said it right there. Everybody, regardless of who you are, how religious or Christian you think you are, needs community. That's part of life. And I think one of the biggest things that's really kind of stuck out to me with especially Christian community, is that even when I was in Thailand and had Buddhist friends I was talking with, I remember one of them, I was trying to bring up like, hey, you need Jesus in your life. This would be good for you. And they mentioned to me, I really like Christians. I like Christians more than Buddhists. They're better people. They do nicer things. They care more. But I can't do it. I can't do it because of my family and because of what I believe. And I have to bury my mom with the special Buddhist rites and things like that. And if nothing else, what that spoke to me, at least as it relates to community, is that, Christian community is meaningful. There's people who care about you. They may not be the best people at caring for you. They may still make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're going to try their hardest to put you first, to care about you first. They'll probably have some tough conversations and tell you things you don't want to hear, mostly because they care about you and they want to see the best in you. And so for anybody out there who's going off to 4-year school, a 2-year school, a vocational school, or even just finishing something up and moving out on their own, find that community of people who will care about you. And hey, if there's like a nice guy you met from a church or who's doing a Bible study on your dorm room floor, and he just keeps like inviting you and asking you like, hey, just give it a shot, then give it a shot once.
That's good.
You never know. If all else fails, you might just make a friend, And if you're not able to do that, then maybe they'll have food and at least you'll get a free meal out of it.
That's good. Nice.
Yeah, you hit the hammer on the head there, or the nail on the head.
The hammer on the nail. You hit the hammer on the nail head there, friend.
Like, it's so true. I mean, we say it all the time, but like we see it every year. Like we see it every year with students. really those people you choose to surround yourself with makes such a difference on your college life. Like it's going to be, it's going to be fun and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be terrible. And those people like that you choose to put yourself around you and like give, kind of an invitation into your life have such a major factor on that. I would venture to say it's probably one of the most important decisions you make, especially right out of the gate when you come to college. Despite degrees, despite career path, those people you surround yourself with that first semester are really going to make a big difference in kind of the whole of your life. And we see it. I mean, we see, couples that have met in Chi Alpha or in our world of Chi Alpha and getting to see like, those kind of celebrations. It's like the people that, made friends. And so the wedding is all people from Chi Alpha because that's who they surrounded themselves with. We love those. Those are like the funnest times, for us as campus missionaries. Man, let me just say, I think that's so good. That's so good stuff. I think we've got our random question for all of us to answer. So Sperry's going to draw us a random question out of our blue cup of chaos bowl, not a cup, bowl of chaos, and then we'll all get a chance to answer that.
Who's going first?
I think we should let our guests go first.
Okay.
Put the pressure on.
Okay. You ready? You ready for this one? It's real. Yeah. I'm gonna show people how taut this one is.
Oh, that one's taut. That's taut. I don't know what that means.
I accidentally ripped it a bit. Okay.
It's a little fragile.
Okay, Boren.
Yeah.
What is one book that has impacted you the most?
Ooh, that's good.
The Bible.
Parentheses. Outside of the Bible.
Yeah. Of course. I think probably one of, I've read a lot of impactful books, even just this year, but I think probably is one from my internship time as a CMIT is From Spiritual Slavery to Spiritual Sonship by Jack Frost. Brandon still hasn't given me back my copy of it.
Dang it.
I've not. I'm sorry.
Dang it, Brandon.
I fell.
Yeah, I'm going to buy like 5 new ones now just because Brandon won't give me
better.
mine.
It's probably better. 5 more instead of 1.
But yeah, that's probably one of the most impactful books I've ever read.
And we've had a lot of our interns that have said the same thing, that have come through and said that's been one of, and really not just that, but even students that have picked it up and read it too. Thanks to Dr. Deisher and Kathy for keeping that in front of our students and our interns.
That was the center of Cry Mondays.
That was the center. Spare, you're next. Pressure's on.
Most impactful book I've read is probably Cynthia loaned me this book a few years back, which I still have also, that I should give back to her.
You guys are terrible people.
Because we're terrible people. Yeah,
we're all terrible people. Still people's books.
But I don't read a whole lot of books. I should. They always say leaders are readers, and that whole thing.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, some craziness. But I don't read a whole lot of books. I'm more of an audio guy. I just like to drive around on my mower and listen to stuff.
Podcasts.
So
not dissimilar from this one.
Yeah. So I think one of the most impactful books that I've read was by John Maxwell. Title of the book is, I can't remember the exact title. I think it's called Developing the Leader Within You, or something along those lines. But that was a really, really, I don't know. I just felt like it kind of helped me develop the leader within myself. Exactly as the title says. It just gave me a different perspective on how to lead and how to, be a better leader. So
yeah, that's a great one. Also, 21 Laws of Leadership is great from Maxwell. Man, that's a tough question. I'm trying to think. I would say, there's. I'm like with Boren. There's been a lot of solid. It's hard to narrow that one down. Probably, if I was going to narrow it down to a couple, Pursuit of God is probably one of the top ones.
Tozer.
And then Mere Christianity as well, but I would probably pair Mere Christianity with Reason for God. Like C.S. Lewis is Mere Christianity, and then Dr. Tim Keller, Reason for God, because it was, I think the two hand in hand were really, really good. But man, there's a long line of books that have probably impacted me. Yeah. Narrowing it down. I was thinking when Sperry was asking the question about the biography you read just like a year or two ago during your internship from, what was it called?
Which one?
The Ardarian, the biography of the missionary from Golden Shores or something, on Golden Shores.
I did not read that as a
I thought that.
I read that as a student.
As a student, yeah.
And then God spoke to me and told me I was going to be a missionary while I was reading it.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as Spirit was asking that. I'm like, oh yeah, because it's a big one. It's
500
it's
plus
a
pages.
hefty, it's a hefty
Massive.
book.
Oh,
Kind
massive.
of like Bonhoeffer's biography, probably thicker than Bonhoeffer's biography. Yeah, I think that's a good question. Maybe that we could one last question if we have a little bit more time. Like, how did the journey go? Just briefly, you don't have to go real deep. Going from somebody that's studying, your degree path, kind of on this, like, hey, I want to be a, researcher. Like, what happened that made you decide I want to lay that down and be a missionary?
Ooh, man, a lot of things. There's a lot of weird things happening that just kind of came together at once. I guess, I'll try and walk through it sequentially if I can remember the exact sequence. But I came to OSU as a student. I was part of this really cool program called Freshman Research Scholars. If you're not a freshman, go and be one. Apply to it. Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's very hard to get into it. It's actually harder to get into it than it is to get into Harvard. But I was a part of it, and I was doing cancer research in the biochemistry department. And I just carried on from that freshman year doing biochemistry research every single year. And I was doing specifically cancer research. And I even did summer internships down at OU doing cancer research, regardless of where I was at. And my project changed a few times too. And regardless of my project, my experiments failed miserably. I got basically... normally when you do research, you get, at the end of the day, you make your big fancy poster, and it's like, these are my findings, and this is how they'll change the world. Mine was like, okay, here's my big fancy poster. If you'll notice on this graph, what we've learned is that it doesn't do any of the things we thought it does. And so all the graphs look the same.
Dang.
So it was just tough. And I remember even multiple different experiments just not going right, and I'd have to redo them. And the other people who worked in the lab with me, they'd give it a shot and it'd be fine the first try. And I was just like, what the heck is happening? I hate all of this right now. It's like, am I supposed to quit and go do something else? That was one factor that really got me okay, maybe research isn't the way to go. Good. Past that, I remember the trips to Thailand that I did as a student over the summer. I remember the very first one. I caught this. There's a wonderful virus. It's called chikungunya, CHIKUNGUNYA. It is just awful.
Yeah.
It's a cousin of dengue fever, and for about a week, it'll just give you the worst nausea and stomach pain. I remember I was bedridden, and if I moved 2 inches, then it's like, okay, let me rush to the bathroom just because everything's coming. And I haven't even eaten that day. Yeah. And so it was rough. And then for 2 months after that, just random joints across my body swole up. At one point, my hand was the same thickness as both my hands together. Yeah. And so it was crazy. It was not fun. But for whatever reason, while I was there, I just, there was a weird love that grew despite the fact that I was incapacitated half the time.
That's good. Yeah.
I remember after that first trip, we had a World Mission Summit in the break time. Go to World Mission Summit this year if you have the opportunity.
Coming up.
Yeah.
January 2020.
St. Louis. If you want to come and you don't have a group to go with, come with the Tulsa crew.
Go with the Tulsa.
If you're at ORU and you want to go, come with us. We'll let you
Yeah,
come.
it's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
We're pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, but I was there, and I was sitting. They had this room that was just basically constant prayer time over every country across the world. And I looked at the schedule and was like, well, I kind of want to go to the Thailand prayer time.
Yeah.
And so I went in there, and I was just praying. And, I was off in this like a little corner of the room. It's dark, dimmed lights, cushions on the floor so you don't like break a knee, I guess. I was praying there, and I was just sitting, and as I was praying, I really felt like the Holy Spirit just come to me and say, hey, you see that missionary leading the prayer for Thailand? You should go up to him and ask him to pray for you. And I was like, well, in case you haven't noticed, that's not what's happening right now. That's not the way to do things. I don't know if you noticed, no one's doing that. But it just, like, throughout the prayer time, I just kept feeling it. And so finally I was like, whatever. And so I get up, and I go to the guy who's, like, over the prayer room, who's, like, trying to make sure everything's happening orderly with the different countries. And I asked him, I was like, hey, this is super weird, but I feel like, is there a way, like, he could pray over me? And he's like, yeah, give me a second. We'll do it right at the end. I was like, okay. I feel super awkward standing here, but let's do it. But so the missionary prayed over me. That was Mark. I can't think of Mark's last name right now. He's the area director for Peninsular Asia. He prayed over me. He asked if anybody else felt called to Thailand. A few other people stood up. He prayed, and then he took me back to the Asia Pacific booth thing and helped me get plugged in and told me, like, hey, Autumn and Rebecca, really try and use that connection, go back with them. Yeah. And I remember when I first saw them, they were the missionaries we had worked with. When I first saw them, I remember, I think it was Autumn was just like, oh, Garret, I'm so glad you're here, It's okay. We understand if you don't want to come back to Thailand after what happened. And we still love and care about you, but we'd love to have you back. And I was like, no, I want to come back. And she was like, oh, you do?
What? Despite the pain?
That's when I got that advice of pray about a year and then give a lifetime. Autumn Starnes, way to go for that piece of advice. From that point, after that, the following semester, I had like a weird time. It was kind of like a breakup thing happened, and I was feeling depressed. I was reading that book Brandon was talking about, To the Golden Shore. It's a book about Adoniram Judson, the first foreign missionary from the U.S. He went to Burma. And I was just having a horrid day. I felt depressed and tired, and I was just like, what is anything anymore? No one loves me. But as I was just reading it, I, again, just the Holy Spirit came to me and was just like, Garret, why are you crying? Why are you sad?
That's good.
I've called you to the same thing I've called this guy to. And so I was like, okay, I've got a purpose. And so all those kind of came together as like the, I guess, confirmation moments or so. And that was the moment when I realized, okay, I need to commit to this thing. And that's what catalyzed me, going off to Thailand for the 6 months. Before that, I was in Germany for a month.
Yeah.
Shout out to anybody from Germany who's watching.
He's listening. Watching.
Yeah. And, from there, that's other confirmations brought me back to Stillwater. And another word from God brought me to Tulsa. That one I was against at the time, but we're doing okay now. So
it's good.
Yeah.
I found it's hard to fight what God wants to tell us to do.
Yeah, there's a story about it with this guy named Jonah. I think it worked out for him.
Didn't work out too well for him.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, man, I think all of us, like as OSU staff, we're just so stinking proud of you, Garret, for following God's call, for being obedient. Honestly, you're like one of the smartest guys we've had, without question. Like one of the smartest students.
Absolutely.
And usually guys like you that are way academically inclined will say, it's like the world's your oyster. You just take whatever you want. You just go out and do whatever you want to do. But to be obedient, to like lay that down and like follow like a harder road, really, in a lot of ways. Harder road and be obedient to that thing it's pretty awesome to see. Yeah. But honestly, just to watch you do it like with humility and trying to again do the best you can. I realize we're all imperfect and we make mistakes, but we're so proud of you, man, and just excited to have you as a colleague, as a campus ministry colleague in the state of Oklahoma. It's pretty awesome, and we know like TU and TCC and the Tulsa area is just benefiting because of your being a part of that team. So we're proud of you, man.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for taking time out of your chaotic schedule in quarantine life and jumping on episode 3 of the Grizzly and Sparrow podcast, or the Adventures of Grizzly and Sparrow.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's been pretty fun catching up.
It's good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Yeah,
I'm sure all of our listeners are going to be ecstatic. Like we said, it was a very highly requested person. So there's
if not,
that.
You would have had protests out in front.
Yeah,
of
yeah, dude. I mean,
for sure. We don't
spray
need
paint everywhere.
For not bringing Garret in. We'll do that one.
Yeah, we'll do him a solid.
It's awesome. Well, we appreciate it, man. I think that's it. That's all we've got. Thank you again. You're a rock star.
Kidz Corner! Hi, welcome back to Kidz Corner. This week we have a very special edition. We are doing a Father's Day edition. As usual, I'm Aubrey. This is Elliot. So, Elliot, can you tell me what is your favorite thing to do with your dad? Play? My favorite thing to do with my dad is probably go disc golfing with him. It's really fun to go disc golfing with him. Yeah. Even if I do lose. What kind of memory do you have with your dad? One of my memories with my dad, that's kind of a hard one. But one of my memories with my dad is in the summer, I always went to his office with him. And we would always stop by Sonic, get drinks. We went to Daylight Donuts to get donuts in the morning. Then we went to Sonic and we got us some drinks. And it was amazing. Okay. Elliot. Whoa, this is going off. Oh. What's your favorite thing to do in the winter? My daddy is Michael. Daddy was Jesus.
Witness, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Okay. Okay. It'll just be 2 questions. Hey, what do you like to do with your dad? Okay. That was pretty thoughtful. What do you love most about your dad?
Interesting. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining us for the special Father's Day edition. Bye. Bye.
That's a wrap for episode 3. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to Garret Boren. We always have a lot of fun talking to incredible missionaries and alumni and friends. Tune in next week. We've got another special guest for you. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, send us Dr. Pepper and unsweet tea, and we can go from there. But appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one.